We're going to talk about inventory management in Chapter 7. This is a very important aspect of supply chain management because there's so much money associated with it, and it's really a way, if you do it effectively, that you can save your company a lot of money. So we're going to talk about dependent demand. We talked about that a little bit in Chapter 6, but we're going to talk about dependent demand. We're going to talk about the kinds of inventories that we have, how to understand turnover, and what some techniques for managing it from a technology standpoint are. So let's just jump right into it. So inventory can be one of the most expensive assets of an organization. So think about in your own home, back to all the food that's in your pantry, all the cleaning supplies that you have, all the laundry detergent, all that. If you had to go buy all that at one time, it's worth a lot of money. So you have a lot of things. You probably don't keep, 6 years worth of Tide or Dawn laundry detergent or dishwashing detergent in your home, because it would be too expensive to store it, and it would be too expensive to keep it if you're not going to use it for a long time. So this is exactly the same situation with a business. A business should not have so much inventory that they're paying to store it, or that they're having to pay for it even when they're not going to get the money for selling it for a long time. So we're going to talk a little bit about how that works. Effective inventory management is very important to both manufacturers and service organizations. So if we think about our salon example, we don't want to have 10,000 towels. We don't want to have gallons and gallons and gallons of shampoo and conditioner and hairbrushes. You often see in the front of a barbershop or a salon, they have shampoo and conditioners and hairbrushes and things for sale. That's their merchandise that they have, in addition to the things that they sell for service, like the actual haircut or the actual highlights or color or whatever. So they have both. So excessive inventory is a sign that you're not doing a good job of inventory management. So we're going to talk about how do you figure out what you need and what you don't need. So on slide 6, we're going to talk about inventory management models. So dependent demand, we talked about earlier. So dependent demand, and this is on your exam, but dependent demand is something that you would not buy unless you were going to use it to manufacture something else. So I wouldn't go to the store and say, I need a piston rod. I would only need a piston rod if I were going to build that ATV. If I was going to make the sandwich and the lunch and all that for my child, I wouldn't go to the store and say, I need a baggie. I wouldn't go to the store and say, I need 1 teaspoon of peanut butter. It wouldn't make any sense. There's nothing you can do with it. The only reason that you would buy it is if you were making a repair to something and you needed that. So I will say that sometimes parts can be both dependent and independent. And on your test, the question that I asked you is, if the part is for a service department for a car, it's different than if it's a part for the manufacturing of the car. So independent demand is for the final product. So I don't want the baggie, I want the lunch. I don't want the piston rod, that's the dependent. I want the actual completed ATV or the completed car. So if you can think about independent demand, means that it's a final product, and how you're going to decide how many you need to make and all that, there is a demand pattern. I can look at that. I can figure out that I'm going to need, through one of those methods that we talked about in a prior chapter, I can figure out what my forecast is and figure out how many I'm going to need by the market conditions. So there's a couple of different kinds of inventory. Buffer inventory, and buffer inventory is for, or some people call it safety stock, but buffer inventory is what you have that's extra. So you have a spare roll of paper towels. You don't need it today, but the thing came in a package of 2, so you bought one and put it on the countertop, and the other one is in your pantry, and when you need it, you're going to use it. So inventory is to buffer from uncertainty in the marketplace and make sure that that safety stock is there. The 4 kinds, this is on your test, you're going to need to come up with these. These are fill in the blanks, so you're going to need to know these. The 4 types of inventory are raw materials, WIP or work in process, finished goods, some people call this FGI, which is finished goods inventory, and then MRO, which is maintenance, repair, and operating. So let's walk through these individually. Raw materials are things like that piston rod. They're things like the baggie. They are things that are unprocessed that you have bought, but you have not made them into something that you can sell. Raw materials, that you should know what that is. Be very certain what that is. If you need to rewind and listen to that explanation again, please do, because this is very important. WIP is work in process. So if I make the sandwich and stick it in the baggie and I get interrupted and I can't finish, or my work day ends, let's just say if this is in a manufacturing environment, my work day ends and I go home, the lunch is not completed. So I have work in process. It's partially created, but I can't finish the lunch until I also have the cookies, the chips, the apple, the bag, and all that, and then it's all been quality checked. FGI, or finished goods, that's products that are ready to ship. That's the completed lunch. Maintenance, repair, and operating in this scenario would be things like a paper towel to wipe up the counter after I make the sandwich, or the cleaner to do that, or the knife, tools that I need. So MRO is things that it takes to run the business. I have to have a trash bag in my kitchen. I have to have a trash can in my kitchen. I have to have all the things that it takes to actually make the factory, the business, the production floor, whatever it is, work. So materials that we use in production but we cannot sell, those are MRO. All right, so there's a couple of things that contribute to how much your inventory costs. Direct costs are things that are directly traceable to the unit. So I say it costs me 15 minutes to make that sandwich. I make $60 an hour, so it costs $15 in labor, which is 60 divided by 4 for 15 minutes. I just did easy math, my blonde hair. I don't like to do complicated math. Direct cost, so that labor is the direct cost. An indirect cost is things like, how much does it cost for the lights to be on in the kitchen? It's hard to compute how much power I've used to have the lights on in the kitchen for me to be able to make that. Or it's hard to compute how much the phone or the internet or something like that to actually run my business costs. But we just look at that as a lump sum, and we call that overhead. So overhead is things that we have to have the lights on regardless, and we can't really charge that. So that's an indirect cost. A fixed cost is things like my rent or my house note, if I'm going back to my lunch example. So fixed costs, if I make one sandwich in a month, or if I make 5,000 sandwiches in a month, I still have to pay the same rent. It doesn't matter, it's fixed. A variable cost is something that varies with the output level. So if I'm gonna make one sandwich a month, how much peanut butter and bread and jelly do I need? If I'm gonna make 10,000 sandwiches, how much peanut butter and jelly and bread do I need? So they vary with the output level. The more I make or the less I make, the more I need or the less I need. Order costs are how much does it cost to actually stop what I'm doing, go in the kitchen, get out the baggies, get out the peanut butter, get out the jelly, get out the knife, get out the paper towel so I can clean it up, find the lunch bag, make sure everything's clean, get everything ready, find the apple, wash it off. All those costs are setup costs. So order costs or setup costs are the same. That's the same word, they just two different words for it. And then holding costs or carrying costs that is how much does it cost me to keep that finished lunch in the refrigerator or however I have to store it until morning. It doesn't cost a lot if it's one, but if I had to figure out a way to store 50 lunches that were completed, I would have to buy a bigger refrigerator. I would have to figure out how to make sure that the bread didn't get stale. Maybe some needed to go in the freezer. Then there's additional cost to pull it out of the freezer and put it into the lunch bag, etc. So that carrying cost is very important. Do not panic that you see a formula here on the bottom. You will never have to calculate inventory turnover, but I want you to understand what it means. Inventory turnover is a metric that lots of people use to determine the health of a business. No one is ever going to come to your desk if you work in supply chain and say, please calculate inventory. But you're going to have a dashboard, very likely, that will be on your computer as part of your MRP system that will tell you inventory turns. You can calculate it from a financial statement, and what it basically, on the balance sheet, it tells you right there. But what you want to understand about this is how this determines the health of the business. So I'm going to use an example that I hope will make this make sense to you. My husband owns a restaurant. I think I told you that. So in a restaurant, if I go into the restaurant and I order lunch and then I sit there for 2 hours, why do they not like that? They don't like it because they want to get me out of there so the next person can come and sit at that table and do their business and they can get that revenue. Then they leave. Then the next person comes. That's turnover. So what we want our inventory to do is the exact same thing. I want to buy it, I want to make the lunch, I want to sell the lunch, and then I want to get in there and make another one and sell it again. If I don't do that over and over and over, here are some things that can go wrong. The bread goes stale and the sandwich isn't good anymore. So now I can't sell it. I've spent all the money on the raw materials, on the labor, my fixed costs, my variable costs, my holding costs, and now I can't sell it. That's one problem. So it could be that it goes bad. It could be that it goes obsolete. No one's going to buy an iPhone 6 right now, right? They needed to get the iPhone 6s sold out of the store before the iPhone 7s and 8s came out. It's the exact same thing. The other thing that can happen is that you're already making all the costs, you're paying for all those things, and it's taking a long time for you to get the money to come in as a sale so that you can get that money back. So if I have to spend $500 on raw materials, I have to issue my payroll and pay the people that did the work, and then I have to store it, but I don't sell it for 2 months, then I have to make sure that I have enough money in the bank that I can continue to pay my workers. I can pay the invoice for all the parts that I had to buy to make that. And that's an unhealthy business. Every industry has a different number that they're going toward. A grocery store obviously wants to turn their inventory over much more frequently than a car dealership. So a car is not going to go bad, but they definitely don't want to hold it for 6 months, right? They want to sell it as quickly as they can. So inventory turnover, some people call it inventory turns, is how many times inventory turns over in an account period. So here, more is better because it means that you're getting your money more quickly and that you're moving your inventory and turning that into revenue. So you will never be asked again to calculate inventory turn or inventory turnover ratio, but you need to understand that the higher that number is, and it's all relative, every industry is a different number that they're going toward, but the higher that number is, the more you are taking what you make and turning it into a sale. If you go into a service business, you don't want to sit and have someone get their hair cut and sit and talk to you for 25 minutes because now there's people sitting in the front waiting and you're not able to get those done. We talked about we could do 4 haircuts an hour. We want to do as many hours with full 4 haircuts as we possibly can. If we only can do 3, that's cutting our number of haircuts we can do down by 8 a day. That's a lot of money. So we want that turnover is just as important in a service business as it is in a product business. All right, the ABC inventory system. This is on your test as well. A items are given the highest priority and they have larger safety stocks because if we run out of those, we're in big trouble. They are usually about the very top 20% of all the items, but they're usually worth about 80% of the money. So they're a small number of parts, but they're worth a lot. B's in the middle, and C are the ones that are the lowest value and the lowest priority. So these are things like screws, if you're into manufacturing, screws, fasteners, things that you need to have, but they don't cost a lot, and they are not usually a high priority but it's a lot of parts because it's a lot of small things. All right, this is what's on your test, slide 11. If you look across the bottom, you see C items, B items, and A items. If you go along the left axis there, you see C items, B items, and A items. So let's look at what those axes mean. Across the bottom, it's how many of those we have, and going up and down the top to bottom axis is how much we're using them. If we're in the white section, we're in good shape. We have the right amount of inventory for the right amount of sales. If we're in the top where it says understocking A and B, that green on the top left-hand section, we need more than we have. We don't have them in stock on A and B, and we're using them more. On the bottom, where it says overstocking B and C, it's saying that we have a lot of stock that we don't need, and we're not able to sell it. So on your test, I'm going to point to one of these sections and have you choose which one of these it means. Does inventory match sales? Are we understocking A and B, or are we overstocking B and C? RFID you've probably heard of and you've probably seen. RFID is a way to track inventory. It's a tag usually or a sticker that goes onto a box, a pallet, an item. It could be like medical equipment, something that's very expensive. We want to track it. And what it does is it allows a reader to track where that is based on this radio frequency connection that it can make to the tag or to the label. That all goes then to middleware. This is on your test as well. Goes to middleware in a computer system and then back to a database so you can track it. These are the components. I think this is what I actually put on your exam. The tag itself, you need a reader, you need a network that makes it work, and then you need software that manages so I can pull it up and say, where is serial number 123 of my mobile x-ray machine? Where is the pallet that's supposed to be shipping to ABC company in my warehouse? Find it for me. Here's that. So all these four things are part of the RFID system. The reason that we like RFID is it makes things automated. You can set something up where as you're taking a forklift off of a truck, and taking a pallet off of a truck, it's actually scanning it as it's coming off the truck, and we know that it's here. We don't have to have someone on a piece of paper or a clipboard making notes that the part has been received. It just automatically does it. It sends it to the network, and it tells it this has been received. Set this for payment. The challenges that we see around RFID right now are that there's not a global standard. China doesn't really like the idea of sharing information for a variety of reasons. There are not standards, so that differences between different radio frequencies in different parts of the world, and there are also some environments where you can't use it because that signal is not well picked up because it's either metal or water that's blocking it. Okay, you've heard the term big data, I'm sure. Big data is about large collections of information that there's no way one human brain could process. And so we pull in information from a variety of different sources, and big data allows us to analyze that. I'm going to pause here and make this the end of section 1 of chapter 7, and then we will pick right back up and do section 2.